are today doing Daf Kaf Zayin Amud Bet. We're on the very, very bottom of Daf Kaf Zayin Amud Aleph. Last words on the page. It says, Ibaya Lahu. So the following question was asked. Ba'alat Haget Ba'alat Ma'amar Ezu Mehen Kodemet. So the case is like this. Someone's brother died, and he had two wives, and these two wives fall to him to Yibum. Okay?
Both of them.
Both of them. Now, let's say one of them he gave a get to. Now, a get is not enough. He still needs to do chalitza. One of them he did ma'amar to. But the problem is, once he gives a get to one, he's not allowed to do yibum to anybody in the family anymore. Yeah.
How come you could get to somebody but he's not kiddushin?
He just did.
No,
Whatever. He made a mistake. He gave a get.
You are allowed to do that?
It doesn't. It
doesn't. You just go to the girl. I say, I'm going to get you. You give a get.
Good. So by chalitza, by a yevama, you're right. But by a yevama, the get still means something that you're not allowed to. If a person goes to the street and gives a random woman a get, doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
He's allowed to marry that woman's sister. Generally, if you give somebody a get, you can't marry her sister.
Because it doesn't work.
So this is actually a little bit of an important introduction. I'm glad you asked. So usually when someone gives a get, you can't marry their sister. But if the get means nothing, then you can. When it comes to yevama, the get, we take it into account. It means something. That when a person gives a get to a yevama, he's not allowed to marry that lady's sister. That's one. And also there's a halacha that the pasuk says, Asher lo yivneh et beit achiv, and we learn, Kevan shelo bana shuv lo yivneh. Once he decides and he does some action to show that he's not going to do yibum, that's it. He loses his chance. So if he gives a get to one of the ladies, he cannot do yibum to any of the ladies. So now the situation is like this. This guy did some funny stuff. He gave a get to one of the yevamas, and he gave he did ma'amar to the other one. Now he's not allowed to do yibum. That's it. Once he gives a get to one, he's not allowed to do yibum at all. The question is, he has to do chalitza. The question is, in this case, who is it preferable to do chalitza to? Is it preferable to do chalitza to the one he gave a get to, or to the one he gave ma'amar to? That's the question of the Gemara. Eze men kodemet. Which one is it preferable to do chalitza to first? So, meaning they're both chalitza psula. We said before in Shmuel's teaching, they're both a low-level chalitza. So, which one is it preferable to chalitza to first? So, ba'alat haget adifa. Do we say it's preferable to give chalitza to the ba'alat haget mishum da'atchil ba b'chalitza, because he already started the process with her, because he gave her a get, so he already started a little bit with her disconnecting. Therefore, maybe it's preferable to do the chalitza to her. Odil ba'alat ma'amar adifa mishum de krova labia, or maybe it's preferable to give chalitza to the one who he did ma'amar to, because over there he did a kiddushin, and it's closer to, the relationship is closer, the zika is stronger, and therefore it's preferable to give the chalitza to her. That's the question. Who should he give the chalitza to in such a case? So Amar Ravashi Tashema. So Ravashi says Tashema. It says Umodeh Rabban Gamliel sheyesh get achar ma'amar. Okay, so there's a concept. Rabban Gamliel says en get achar get, which means if a person gives a get to one yevama, and then he gives a get to the tzara, to her sister, to the other yevama. So Rabban Gamliel says the second get means nothing. The first get that he gave to the yevama, that's okay. That makes it that you can't do yibum anymore to this family, and you're not allowed to marry the sister of the lady who you gave a get to. But if he gives a get to the second yevama, to the tzara, to her co-wife, so that doesn't mean anything. That's what Rabban Gamliel says. En get achar get. But Modeh Rabban Gamliel sheyesh get achar ma'amar or ma'amar achar get. He agrees that there is get after ma'amar, that if he did ma'amar to one sister, then he did get to another sister, that get means something. And also he agrees that there's ma'amar achar get. If he gave a get to one, not sister, I'm sorry, to one yevama, and then he gave the ma'amar. He did ma'amar to one lady, and then he gave a get to her tzara.
If it doesn't ma'amar, it doesn't need to. You need to get to the other one. It's already the other one is get free.
We're talking about no one goes free by ma'amar midoraita. Ma'amar is just a kiddushin d'Rabbanan. No one goes free until there's a thing. But Rabban Gamliel says that if a person first does ma'amar and then he gives a get to the tzara, yeah. So yesh get achar ma'amar. That get actually means something, and it's chal in terms of him not being able to do yibum anymore, and also him not being allowed to marry the relatives, the sister of the person who he gave a get to. And Rabban Gamliel also says yesh ma'amar achar get, which means if he first gave a get and then afterwards he did ma'amar, that ma'amar is chala as well. So
that means
he says both ways.
Ma'amar for the first wife, ma'amar for the first wife is still the other wife is not free to go.
Correct. That's true. Yeah. Okay. So now the Gemara explains that get adif lo li'ani ma'amar batre. If get is stronger, so then the ma'amar afterwards shouldn't be chal. The get already was chal, and the ma'amar afterwards shouldn't be chal. Ma'amar adif. If ma'amar is stronger, so lo li'ani get batre. So then the get that happens after the ma'amar shouldn't be chal. So the fact that he says get works after ma'amar and ma'amar works after get, so elalav shma mina ki adadininhu. You see that they're similar. So shma mina. So the Gemara says yes, that's true. They're similar, and in the case above where he did ma'amar to one and gave a get to the other one, it doesn't make a difference which one he does chalitza to. Either one would be fine. Okay, moving on. So Amar Rav Huna Amar Rav. So you have two sisters that fell to a yavam. Now you had three brothers, two of them were married to two sisters, both of them die. So two sisters fall to yibum to one man. Chalatz l'ishona hutra. He does chalitza to the first one, she's muteret. Chalatz l'shniya hutra. He does chalitza to the second one, she's muteret. Now let's say meta rishona. So over here we have two Yevamot. You have Yevamah number 1 and Yevamah number 2.
Two brothers?
There were a total of 3 brothers.
Yeah, 2 of them died.
2 of them were married to 2 sisters, they died. So first sister number 1 falls to him to Yibum, and then a few days later, sister number 2 falls to him to Yibum. Okay,
Sister.
So they're both sisters. So Meta Rishona, if the first one then dies, Mutar Bishniya. This is Rav's opinion. If the first sister dies, he's allowed to marry the second sister.
Makes sense.
Ve'en tzarich lomar meta shniya shemutar b'rishona. And of course, everybody will agree that if the second one dies, he can do yibum to the first one. Now, just important to know, there's a difference between the first one and the second one. When the first one fell to yibum, he originally was muteret to her. Then her sister fell to yibum. Now he can't. But he was originally muteret to the first one, and then the second one came to fall to yibum, and that made it that he is not muteret to the first one anymore because he has 2 sisters, achot zekukato. Then she's
free to go?
No.
She's hanging.
Yeah, he has to do chalitza. He has to do chalitza to both of them. But the what's important to understand here is when lady number 1 falls to him to yibum, so she's muteret. Her sister falls to yibum. Now that's it. They're both require chalitza. When sister number 2 dies, so the first sister who originally when she fell she was muteret, that he's allowed to be with. That everyone agrees on. But the second one we're gonna have a machloket on. If the first sister falls, and then when the second sister falls, he was never muteret to the second sister when she came to yibum.
Because he got married with the first one?
No, he didn't get married because he has a zikah to the first one. When 2 sisters fall to yibum at the same time, he can't do yibum to either one of them. So if the first one falls and then the second one falls, so when the second one fell to yibum, he never had an opportunity where he was muteret to the second one. And then the first one dies, that there's going to be a machloket on. If the second one dies, everyone agrees he could marry the first one because she originally was muteret. But when the second one, if the first one dies, not everybody agrees that he could marry the second one, because when she originally fell, she wasn't muteret. So that's going to be a machloket Rav and Rabbi Yochanan. This is okay. So this is going to be a machloket Rav and Rabbi Yochanan. Let's read it inside. So Rav said, so Rav said, Meta Rishona, if the first one dies, mutar b'shniya, he's allowed to marry even the second one. Ve'en tzarich lomar meta shniya shemutar b'rishona, and of course he's allowed to marry the first one if the second one dies. Mishum dehavi yevama sheutra v'ne'esor v'chazar v'hutar, because she's a yevama that originally she was muteret, and then her sister fell to yibum, she became asura, and then she became muteret again. So tachzor le'itara rishon, she goes back to being muteret. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Rabbi Yochanan says, Meta shniya mutar b'rishona. Rabbi Yochanan says, I agree with you, if the second one dies, he's allowed to marry the first one. He's allowed to do yibum to the first one, because she originally was muteret. Aval meta rishona asur b'shniya. But if the first one dies, he's not allowed to do yibum to the second one that fell, the second sister. My ta'ama, shekol yevama, she'en ani kore ba b'shat nefila yevama yavo aleha, Harezo ke'eshet ach sheyesh lah banim ve'asura. Rabbi Yochanan says, what's the reason? How come if the first one dies, he cannot do yibum to the second one? Because there's a rule. Any time when a yevama falls to yibum, if she's not muteret at that point, so we don't say yevama yavo aleh. She doesn't have a heter of yibum at that point. That's it. She's like an eshet ach in a situation where yibum was not allowed, and she's asura. So the Gemara says, well, Rav argues with this. Rav ledle haisvara. Rav argues with this. Rav holds that even when she falls, if she's asura, she can become muteret. V'amar Rav kol isha she'en ani koreba b'shad nefila yevama yavo alea reikish de'ach she'esh lo banim v'asura. Rav said this himself, that if at the time that she falls, yibum is not an option, so even if later she becomes muteret, that's it. So the Gemara says, the Gemara says, no. Rav was talking about, Rav agrees if there's really an Isur Deoraita. If, let's say, someone is married to a woman, and then her sister falls to Yibum, to the brothers, and then his wife dies. So when she originally fell to Yibum, he was Asura, and then his wife dies, now he's allowed to marry his sister. That's what Rav is saying. No, when she originally fell, she was Asura, she never becomes Muteret. But over here, right, Aval Hacha Zika de Rabbananhi. Over here, it's just a Zika, it's the Rabbanan. There's no actual Erva. Therefore, Rav holds that he would be allowed to marry the second sister if the first one dies. So that's the Machloket Rav and Rabbi Yochanan is about the second sister. Right, the case is sister number one falls to Yibum. He didn't do any Yibum or anything yet. And then sister number two falls. Now the moment sister number two falls, there's no option of Yibum to sister number two. But then the first sister dies. So Rabbi Yochanan says that since when the second sister fell, that Yibum was not an option. That's it. It's not an option, and he has to do Chalitza to her. Rav says that no, since it's only Durabanan, there's no actual Erva. The reason it wasn't an option is because it's Achot Zukukato, and the first sister died, so he's allowed to marry, do Yibum to the second sister. So Eiteve Rabbi Yossi bar Chanin or Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina asked Rabbi Yochanan, Arba'a Achin, Shtayim Mehem Nesuin Shtei Achayot. He asked him a question from our Mishnah. You have 4 brothers. 2 of them are married to 2 sisters. We said in our Mishnah that when there's 4 brothers, 2 of them are married to 2 sisters. Those 2 brothers died. So now you have 2 sisters falling to Yibum to 2 people. So we said that they both require Chalitza and none of them could do Yibum. Now, according to what we're saying, there is a way to do Yibum. So V'amai asked the Gemara, why do they both require Chalitza? Liku chad minayhu lachlotz la lishniya. Let one of the brothers should do Yibum to the second wife. Do Chalitza to the second sister, the sister that fell second. And then he would be matir the first sister. So the case is like this. You have 4 brothers. 2 of them are married to 2 sisters. First, one of them dies, then the other one dies. So you have 2 sisters that fall to Yibum. One of them fell first, one of them fell second. So the Mishnah teaches that you have to do chalitza to both of them. The Gemara says, what are you talking about? According to what Rabbi Yochanan just said, that's not true.
One of them.
He could, one of the brothers could do chalitza to the lady that fell second, and then the other brother could do yibum to the first lady, because when she first fell, she was muteret.
We have 2 brothers available?
Yes, there's 4 brothers total.
4 brothers.
2 of them died. So you have 2 sisters that fell to yibum. So we're saying the Mishnah teaches the halacha is that he has to do chalitza to both of them.
Okay.
The Gemara is asking that according to what we just said, why? Why does he have to do chalitza to both of them? Let the one of the brothers do chalitza to whoever fell second, and then the one who fell first to yibum, she becomes muteret again, and they could do yibum.
Okay.
So why are we saying? Why does the Mishnah teach to do
Get
chalitza?
married with the chalitza woman?
No, that once he does chalitza, that's it.
Other boy, other brother.
The other no.
Why
The
not?
other brother did chalitza to her. He cannot do yibum after
Because
you do
he's married this
chalitza.
girl. Why not?
You cannot do yibum after chalitza. You cannot do yibum after chalitza, and the only
Is that we don't call it yivum. We cannot get married.
no, you can't marry after chalitza. Cause she that's kevan shelo bana shuv lo yivne. He can't marry after chalitza. Okay, so that's the question on Rabbi Yochanan. So says the Gemara. So Amar le. So right, it's gonna be. So why doesn't he do that? He'll do. One of the brothers will do chalitza to whoever fell second. So leikuchad minayu lachlos la lishniya. He'll do chalitza to whoever fell second, the sister that fell second. V'tiyavi rishona legabe idach ki yevama shuter v'neser v'chazor v'hutra tachzor le'tera rishon. And the first yevama will become muteret again. So Amar le. So Rabbi Yochanan said, Achayot en yodea mishanan. Rabbi Yochanan said, this Mishnah of Achayot, I don't know who taught it. Meaning, it's not. I don't accept it as a proof. It's not an acceptable, reputable Mishnah. So now the Gemara is gonna go on a little bit of a journey to figure out why did he have to go there? Why did Rabbi Yochanan have to say this is not an acceptable Mishnah? He had no way of working it out with his shita. The Gemara says, "Velemale my cholotzot nami dektani choletzet chada." The Gemara says when it says cholotzot, maybe that just means that one of them does chalitza to the second sister. Not that they both have to get chalitza. Not that both brothers have to do chalitza to both sisters, or both sisters require chalitza. It means he does chalitza to the second one, and he could really do yibum to the first one. One of the brothers does chalitza to the second one, and the other brother could do yibum to the first one, and it will work out according what Rabbi Yochanan says. So the Gemara says no, he couldn't have said that because cholitzot katani, because it says cholitzot, not choletzet, cholitzot. Both of them require chalitza. So the Gemara says v'lei malei my cholitzot de'alma. Maybe it means cholitzot de'alma, that in general in such cases there's chalitza, but really you're only doing chalitza to the sister that fell second. Meaning in these types of cases, whoever's in such a case, cholitzot, they're going to have to do chalitza to the second sister, and they could really marry, the other brother could do yibum to the first sister. So the Gemara says, no, you can't learn that way. Hare elu katani. It says hare elu. These ladies, both of these sisters, require chalitza. So the Mishnah is being clear that you have to do chalitza to both of them, and yibum is not an option. The Gemara says, no, I'm not done yet. Velema dechalitz lerishona beresha. So maybe the case is that he did chalitza to the first sister. Once you do chalitza to the first sister, so according to Rabbi Yochanan, the second sister is not available anymore. Yeah.
We have time.
Yeah.
I don't understand yet. Okay, we have one brother, 2 brothers passed away. We have 2 sisters, wife.
There's 2
the
remaining brothers.
2 remaining brothers.
Yeah.
Why these 2 remaining brothers? The first one go to this one and second one to that.
So you have achot. There are 2 sisters.
So
Each brother cannot do yibum to achot zekukato, to the sister of the lady who he has a zikatu. So brother number one cannot
Normal,
do Yibum
normal
to...
life. Two
No.
brothers could marry two sisters.
Yes, but you can't. But a brother cannot marry his wife's sister. So over here, he has a zikah to both of
that's
them.
his wife. That's his brother's wife.
He has a zikah to lady number one, so he can't marry her sister, and he also has a zikah to lady number two, so he can't marry her sister. When you have two sisters falling to yibum, right? This is the background of this whole Gemara. This is something that has to be clear from the beginning.
Okay,
So what the Gemara is trying to do at this point is trying to find on the bottom of Daf Kaf Zayin Amud Bet. The Gemara is trying to find a way to make this Mishnah work with Rabbi Yochanan. Again, Rabbi Yochanan's shita is that if a lady falls to Yibum and then her sister falls to Yibum, so if the Zika is removed from the second lady dies or something happens, then he's allowed to marry the first lady. But if something happens to the first lady, he cannot marry the second lady. So in this case, where you have two sisters falling to these two brothers, so if he does yibum, if he does chalitza to the first sister, the one that fell first, he can't do yibum to the second sister because the zikah, when she first fell to yibum, there was never a heter, because when she fell, her sister also had fallen to yibum. So the Gemara says, "V'lema the chalitz leil rishona bereisha." Maybe the case is that he did chalitza to the first sister first, and that's why it says they both require chalitza, because if he did chalitza to the first sister, he can't do yibum to the second sister anymore, because she would never had a zaman where she was muteret, and therefore he has to do chalitza to both. So the Gemara says you can't learn the Mishnah that way, because cholitzot lechatchila katani. It says in the Mishnah cholitzot lechatchila. Okay, v'le male gzera dilma kadim v'chalitz lerishona beresha. Maybe why didn't Rabbi Yochanan tell him that the reason the Mishnah says you do chalitza to both lechatchila is because we're worried that he might do chalitza to the first one first, and it'll be messed up. But b'di'avad, if he did it the right way, if he did chalitza to the second one first, then he could do yibum to the first one, like what Rabbi Yochanan said. You remove the zika from the second sister, the first sister that fell, that originally when she fell she was muteret, she becomes chazra lehetera harishon, she becomes muteret again. So maybe that's how you learn the Mishnah. So says the Gemara, v'lo mityavemot ktani. It says lo mityavemot, deleka din yibum, hacha klal. There's no yibum here at all. V'le male gzera shema yamut. So the Gemara says, okay, why didn't Rabbi Yochanan say that? No, we're worried. Why didn't Rabbi Yochanan learn different pshat in the Mishnah? When we originally had the Mishnah, we had two pshatim. Either you can't do yibum to either of the sisters because of achot zekukato, or you can't do yibum to either of the sisters because there's an asur levatel mitzvat yevamin, meaning really ein zika. There's no issue of yesh zika. There's no issue of achot zekukato. But we're worried if you do yibum to one of the sisters, then the brother will die, and the other sister is going to be left with bitul mitzvat yivum. Therefore, you have to do chalitza to both. So why didn't Rabbi Yochanan say that's pshat in the Mishnah? So Rabbi Yochanan lemita lo chayish. Rabbi Yochanan's not worried. He's not choshesh for the brother to die and bitul mitzvat yivamin to happen. So therefore, he must not hold that way. V'le Rabbi Eliezer. He is really supposed to be Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer. Why didn't Rabbi Yochanan tell him, no, that Mishnah, you can't bring a raya against me because that's going according to Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer holds that any time a Yevamah becomes Asura for any reason, that's it. She's Asura Olamit. But Rabbi Yochanan will say, I argue with Rabbi. We don't hold like Rabbi Eliezer. Chachamim say that that's not true. So this Mishnah is like Rabbi Eliezer, and that's why he can't bring it as a raya against me. So the Gemara says no, that Rabbi Yochanan couldn't have said that. Midasei for Rabbi Eliezer, Reish Alav Rabbi Eliezer, because since the next line in the Mishnah says Rabbi Eliezer Omer, it means that the first case of Arba'a Achin is not Rabbi Eliezer. V'nemelahu nenafol b'vat achat. So why didn't Rabbi Yochanan say that we're talking about a case where these two ladies fell to Yibum at the same time? Rabbi Yossi Aglilihi, and it's going according to the opinion of Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Da'amar efshar litzamtzem. He holds it's possible for two things to happen at the exact same time, and since they fell at the exact same time, there's no first and second. Both of them are going to be asurot. No one was ever muteret to begin with to say that if you remove the zika of the sister, then she'll become muteret again. Right? The whole svara of Rabbi Yochanan is the first one that fell. So if her sister, the zika is removed, if her sister dies, or if her sister gets a chalitza or something like that, the first one, chazra lehetera harishon. But over here, there's no first one. So if there's no first one, she should be, they're both going to be asura. And that's how Rabbi Yochanan could have learned the Mishnah. The Gemara says, no, I couldn't have said that. Why not? Losatam latanak Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Generally, a Mishnah doesn't just stam Mishnah go like Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Okay, so the Gemara says, I have another suggestion. V'le maleh d'lo yadina n'hayd nafol bereisha. So the Gemara says, okay, why can't it just be very simple? We don't know which one is first, which one is second. It was safek. Right, the two Yevamot fell. The one lady, the two brothers died. We don't know which one died first, which one died second. You just got news, your brother died, your other brother died. So, okay, one Yevamah fell to him first, the sister fell to him second. He doesn't know the order. He doesn't know which one is the first, which one is the second. But really, it's true. If he knew which one was first and which one was second, so one of the brothers could do chalitza to the second one, and then he could do yibum to the first one. But he doesn't know. So the Gemara says, Hachi, hainu diktani, kadmu v'kansu yotziu. So if that's the case, that which it says in the Mishnah, that kadmu v'kansu yotziu, that if they do yibum, if the brothers do yibum, they have to separate. So the Gemara says, Bishlama Rishona Amrinan le Man Shari Yalach. So the Gemara says, okay, the first guy to do Yibum, you're right. We can make him separate because two sisters are waiting for you to do Yibum. You're now, doing Yibum to one of them. You can't do that. You can't do Yibum to one of two sisters when they both have a zikah to you. Ela Shniya, but the second guy, why would we make him separate from his wife? Right? Amar, he could say, Chavrai Shniya Yibim. He could say, listen, my brother married the second one. He took care of the zikah of the second one. And for me, it's muteret to be with this lady because she originally was muteret. She was the first one. I mean, it's a safek. So he could claim, listen, this is the first one. You're not allowed to break his marriage because of such a safek. So and that's why Rabbi Yochanan told him, this Mishnah of achayot, I don't know who taught it. It's not easy to solve. It's not a reputable Mishnah to bring a raya against me. So Rabbi Yochanan stands with his shita that if one of them, right, if in the case where you have the two sisters that fell to Yibum, right, just to recap very quickly, Machloket Rav and Rabbi Yochanan, if you have two sisters that fall to Yibum, one of them falls first, then the second one falls second. So Rav says if one of them, Rav says if one of them dies, you could do yibum to the other one because the zika was removed and there's no two sisters anymore. Rabbi Yochanan says no. It only is true if the second one dies, you could do yibum to the first one because if the second one dies, the first one when she originally fell, she was muteret to do yibum. Second one came and blocked her, and then she was removed. So that's allowed. But if the first one dies, you can't do Yibum to the second one, you got to do Chalitza. Why? Because the second one, when she originally fell to Yibum, off the bat, there was no option of Yibum, because her sister was already waiting for Yibum. And you can't have two sisters waiting for Yibum at the same time, they both require Chalitza. So that's that was the Shita of Rabbi Yochanan. So that's the Machloket Rav and Rabbi Yochanan.